Welcome to UCF Knightline, your source for UCF sports and former player information.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Phegley coming to you from the 1148 studios, and in studio with me today is
Trylko. Hello, everyone.
Alrighty, this is episode number 33 of the UCF Knightline podcast, and there's a little bit of NFL news that we can get right off the top here. Latavius Murray could be the man in Oakland following the retirement of Maurice Jones-Drew.
Seems to pave the way for Latavius to step up and to step into that role, and a good opportunity for him on a not-so-good team.
Also, reports saying that Bears trade Brandon Marshall to the Jets.
I don't know who's throwing to him, but it'll be a big contract, a big opportunity for him in the Big Apple.
Absolutely. All right, so the rundown here for today is going to be Quintin Hampton is going to join us a little bit later. John Swift is going to join us, and Shannon Owens-Green from the Orlando Sentinel, the UCF Knights beat reporter, will join us as well.
And you talk about John Swift crunching the numbers. He's focusing this week on the offensive line play, and that is something that UCF fans closely watched last year. That was a difficult group to watch. It was a different combination of players every week. It's going to be a critical part to look at for this upcoming season and the success of the running game and protection for quarterback Justin Holman.
Yes, it will. So I think now is the perfect time to crunch the numbers. Welcome to Crunching the Numbers, featuring John Swift. All right, we're joined by John Swift. John, we're talking a little bit about the offensive line this week. We've lost a couple guys. We're getting a couple guys. Where do we stand?
Yeah, a lot of holes to fill, and the big ones can be at left tackle. We obviously lost Torian Wilson, who was a 4-year starter, played in 49 games, and each of those 4 years was an all-conference player. So definitely a quality guy. He'll have a shot in the NFL as well. I know he struggled a little at times last year, but that's going to be a big gap to fill for us on the offensive line. And then another starter, Tariq Milner, who transferred from Jacksonville State, started 7 games at left guard and played in all 13. Another guy that solidified a little bit on that offensive line that we're going to have to find a new guy for.
Not a lot of seniors coming back, though, either, so you're looking for underclassmen to step up.
Yeah, exactly. So we have 2 seniors on the roster coming back. One is Joey Grant, who we don't know where he'll be, if he'll be at center or moved over to guard again. And then Tariq Cook, who I believe will start at right guard. He started 9 games last year at right guard and looks to be the favorite coming out. We bring back 4,600 pounds of offensive linemen, but only 2 seniors, so a lot of weight. Is it going to be a Suburban or is it going to be the Escalade? That's what I'm wondering, if these guys are going to execute well or kind of fall in the footsteps of last year.
Do you think with a bunch of guys that are actually coming back, though, that played last year together, do you think there's going to be a little bit more gel this year?
You certainly hope so. I think, losing 2 starters, putting 2 new in, you're going to have a new chemistry. Some guys that had some playing time, I think that definitely helps. They know the speed and strength of the game. I think at left tackle, that's going to be a really interesting spot. The guy I'm looking at is Michael Campbell. He actually started in 2 games at guard last year, but more naturally at tackle. Played in all 13. I think he might be the favorite to start at left tackle. Moving inside at left guard, and then Colby Watson. He started in 3 games with something an injury last year. I know the coaching staff was high on him. He's 6'5", 318 pounds. I think he might be the guy there at left guard. Center, I thought Jason Ray did a pretty good job last year. He started in 7 games, and I think he's the front runner right now. What Joey Grant has coming into the offseason. And then, as I mentioned, Tariq Cook, probably the favorite at right guard. And then at right tackle, Travis Dickey, who's the first true freshman to start on the offensive line since 2006. He started 12 games. He's an honorable mention all AAC player. I'm a guy that got a lot of experience last year. He had some growing pains, but looked very solid out there. So I think at least we have a good young talent there at right tackle coming back. And then some other guys that have game day experience that'll be filling in.
I think one of the most frustrating things for fans to watch last year was it seemed nearly every week, out of necessity, UCF was starting a different combination of players to find the right mix. Think we can get a greater level of consistency with those starters this year?
Yeah, you really do hope so. You have all the spring camp and summer going in. I think last year, there were a couple injuries. They're moving guys around to try to figure out who's going to fit. But don't forget that we also had a QB kind of battle going on, and kind of that run-pass mix was varied a lot through the season as far as Holman throwing 50 times a game versus 30 times a game. So you had different needs as far as the offensive linemen. So I think they were kind of juggling guys around and trying to fit, the offensive scheme that we were playing that week, and just didn't find the right fit until kind of later on in the season with the guys that we had, and, got exposed a little there in the bowl game. Hopefully this offseason they work hard and kind of gel together so that we can get a little better effort next year.
When you take a look at the schedule for the 2015 season, you see that 10 straight weeks without a bye week. What sort of depth do you see here at this position?
Yeah, I think, even though it's not probably our strongest position, I think we do have a decent amount of depth. Two guys I didn't mention, Aaron Evans, who got a lot of playing time last year, started in the Ireland game, played in 12 games. I got off the guard who might be in the mix for a starting spot. He struggled at times, but the coaching staff was behind him coming out of last year's camp. And then also Chester Brown, a guy who seems like he's been here for 5 years already. Very big guy, 6'5", 317, that has a ton of potential, but just hasn't seemed to put it all together to play effective out there.
Yeah, we did well in recruiting with the offensive line as well this year, so we've got a couple guys that are coming in that could really be a factor and could really have a chance to start.
Yeah, the first guy, is probably the biggest name, is Luke Ayers. He was a 4-star, committed to Kentucky originally, wanted to stay in state. He had 7 Power 5 offers. He goes 6'3", 290. Watching tape on him, he's got a mean streak. I'm really excited to have him in the program. The coaching staff thinks he's the center of the future. It'll be interesting to see if he might be able to contribute a little next year at guard or potentially center. O'Leary typically hasn't started a lot of freshmen at offensive line, but he's a guy I think that's going to have a bright future at UCF. And then Tyler was a 3-star, 6'5", 290. Did a lot of FCS offers. The coaching staff with some ties up in Pittsburgh area liked what they saw. Temple offered him, and then we gave him an offer, and he's coming down here.
I guess last year we started a couple freshmen. I don't think that we could get much worse than what we did last year on offensive line, to be honest with you. That was the part that struggled the most all year long, and we obviously need to figure something out with that. So I wouldn't be shocked to see these guys put in on the first few games, and I wouldn't be shocked at all.
Yeah, usually, freshmen, you only want to start if you have to. I think last year definitely we needed to. This year I think you got a couple more guys coming back with some game day experience that should help out, but do like what I see as far as the guys coming in, with their potential, whether it be immediate or redshirt a year and get some strength on them to come back and compete the following year.
So if you had to point out 1 or 2 players that you think are critical to the progression of the offensive line this coming football season, you would point out who?
I think it's going to have to be Michael Campbell, the guy tagged as left tackle. Rangy guy, 6'6", 285. He was a tight end in high school. His senior year got moved to tackle. Athletic guy. I think, he's a prototypical guy that really likes there at left tackle as far as being rangy, athletic. He's a guy I think he really needs to put it together. He started 2 games at guard because we had such a need at guard last year, but tackle is more his natural position. I think he's going to be a guy that needs to step up, show what he can do, and really help protect the quarterback's blind side.
We had a couple guys the last couple of years that have moved on to the NFL, and this has been a position that's always been strong because of a strong running game with UCF. The struggles that we've had in the last couple of years, they haven't been things that we're used to at UCF. We're used to having, like I said, the strong offensive line. What is it going to take to get back to that for us and to get our running game back into our game?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. It's one, it starts up front, putting a body on a body. George O'Leary always preaches that, just getting after that toughness that we need from offensive linemen, push guys off the ball. And then you also have to look at the running game. Plenty of times where there's a little bit of a hole, not much of one, but running backs are kind of too much time back there trying to figure out where they want to go rather than getting up the field. So I think, a good off season last year wasn't quite what anybody really wanted, but I think a good building year, and hopefully this year they'll find some more success.
All righty, we will definitely see. We will look forward to having you back for another breakdown and crunching the numbers of another area soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, and charge on.
So you travel a lot for work and fun. Have you ever thought about having just a little bit more insurance? TravelX gives you the peace of mind so you can take care of your family and loved ones. Click the link on our webpage. I'm just saying, accidents happen.
Brandon Alexander, and you listen to the Knightline podcast.
All right, thank you, Brandon. On John Swift's next episode of Crunching the Numbers, he's going to be talking about running backs, fullbacks, and tight ends. And coming up here in just a second, we have Quintin Hampton, who is a linebacker recruit from Georgia.
Yeah, before we get to Quintin's interview, big top 10 matchup at J. Bergman Field this week. Number 2 Florida Gators came to town. Number 9 UCF Knights in baseball. You were out there. I had to travel for work, so couldn't be a part of the record-setting crowd and the big win. Electric atmosphere.
I was there with 4,319 other fans, and it was crazy. And Terry Rooney says that that's what made the game.
Number one, I want to thank everybody who came out. It was a record crowd. Really appreciate all the support, Knight Nation. It was awesome. What an environment, and it helped. Second of all, it's a total team win. A lot of individual great performances, but from start to finish, guys picking each other up, and a heck of a win tonight.
Andrew, what's fun about working on the podcast during this time of the year, during spring, is an opportunity to bring on some guests, some of the new recruits. Last week's Knightline podcast with Bo Schneider was the most listened to episode of the podcast ever, and we have another new Knight on board this week.
Yeah, Quintin Hampton. I'm really looking forward to having this kid here, and he sounds like he's a smart guy, and we're going to hear from him right now. All right, joining us now on the phone is Quintin Hampton from Moultrie, Georgia, Colquitt County High School. He's a linebacker. He played a little bit of defensive end in high school, where if you're watching his tape, you'll see that. But he's going to play linebacker, I believe, at UCF. Quintin, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Welcome to Knight Nation, and we're looking forward to having you at UCF.
Thank you. I'm ready to be a part of the nation.
Talk a little bit about what made you choose UCF. What made you commit to UCF and sign the papers?
Well, the main thing that made me commit to UCF was the family atmosphere. You know, it was really friendly and family-oriented when I went down. You know, as soon as my first time down there just for camp, as soon as I arrived on campus, we had coaches, me and my coach, Coach Felton, already had coaches waiting on us right there at the gate just to lead us in. And the whole time at camp, talking to coaches, the whole coaching staff the entire time, and they treated me nothing. They just treated me like a son, basically. And it was just a really great atmosphere, and having all the players, especially my brother, Jemias Pittman, down there, a real close friend of mine. And they also played on the Colquitt County Packers with me. Having him down there made the experience even better just because he helped me meet a lot of the other guys. And it was an easy transition, you know, going down there than to Cincinnati, where I was once committed at, because I didn't know anybody up there, but I knew Jemias and Chris Williams, the cornerback, because he's from Camden County. I met him a few times prior to him committing to Central Florida as well. And, you know, it was just, that's what really sold it for me, is just the family atmosphere and how they treated you down there.
Definitely some down-home kind of stuff going on at UCF as far as that goes. And I know that Coach O'Leary and all the rest of the coaches really try to make it like that. Everybody says that. You definitely got the right vibe there. Speaking of Cincinnati, you were just saying that you were committed at one point to Cincinnati, correct?
Yes, I was.
Where did it change from Cincinnati to UCF?
Reason why I committed to Cincinnati is because it was my first big offer when it came down during spring. They offered me at one of the practices, and then it was just, you know, basically an impulse decision almost. It was just, I have a big offer. I want to go ahead, and I don't want to be one of those guys that has all the hats on the table and just all this hype built up around me. And I want to be one of the players that knows what he wants to do, make a decision early just so I can go ahead and finish out the rest of my high school career and have fun. And that's basically why I committed it first. You know, I thought it was the right decision for me at that moment, not knowing that Central Florida was going to pull the trigger about 2 weeks later. And then, you know, when I went down to camp and I saw everything down there at Central Florida, my whole mindset changed from when I did go to camp in Cincinnati. And it was just, you know, it was a no-brainer then, you know, Cincinnati, where it's super cold up there, and I don't have any family up there, or being able to have my family come watch me every week down there in Orlando, it was a no-brainer. Then I knew I wanted to go to Central Florida.
Yeah, with the palm trees and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and playing in beautiful weather most of the time. You might get a cold game in your 4 years here, maybe once. You never know. It may rain once or twice, but that's all right. Talk about how hard of the decision it is to make as an 18-year-old kid to make a decision like that. You said that you thought that you wanted to get it off your back and all that stuff. But I don't think a lot of people understand how hard it is for an 18-year-old kid or 17 or whatever to make that kind of a decision and a commitment at that time. And we look at all of this recruiting season and wait for the kid to pick their hat and all this stuff. But what goes into making a decision like that, and how difficult is it for you to do that?
Well, when you start to get a lot of offers, you start getting you guys start getting multiple offers, I can say, it starts to get harder because, it's a lot of decision making, but then again, it's not really hard because I'm used to making a lot of hard decisions, and I knew it was the best decision for me after weighing out all my options and just looking around, because I had a lot of D1 AA offers. I had about 6 or 7 just regular D1 offers, and it gets hard sometimes, just having to make a decision not only for you, but for your family. At the end of the day, it's not going to be all the people that's on Twitter and that's on Facebook and that's on Instagram saying, hey, come to our school, and all the coaches calling saying that they can do this for you and that they can do that for you. It's always about how you feel at the end of the day. What's the best choice for you? Where can you play the most? Where can you play the earliest? Where can you be a successful man in life by the place that you choose? And then also the education that comes behind it. So that's really what slowed me down. Like I said earlier, everything down there is basically perfect. It's a dream school.
Now, going into the recruiting process, what did you know about UCF? When you were playing high school, what were your memories and knowing about UCF?
Well, I know my dad played against them when he was at Valdosta State. He played down there one game and told me about that. Probably it was my 8th grade year, so that's the only knowledge I really had of UCF, knowing that, hey, my dad played against them one time and they got beat. Then after that, it was just, they probably didn't come back on the scene in my mind. I didn't really notice anything until Blake Bortles and Storm basically took off in the program, and then Terrence Plummer. Because I used to look at a lot of linebacker stats and stuff, choose my favorite linebacker for the next year. And then when I started looking at it, I was like, UCF. Oh, my dad was talking about that, and being able to see Terrence Plummer's name and watching some of his film and being like, okay, I like modeling my game after him. I like getting all the linebackers that have always been my favorite, molding it all together and just being like, okay, I got to model my play after these guys in order to be the best, because I see that they're at a college level about to go pro, so I know they're the best. So that's pretty much all the knowledge I had of UCF is probably Storm, Blake Bortles, and Terrence Plummer. When they won the Fiesta Bowl, that put them back on the map, and my boy Jemias, when he committed down there, signed down there, he started telling me a lot more about it and told me to keep working hard, and they were going to offer later on, and it turned around. It happened a few weeks later. It did.
So UCF fans are excited about this 2015 recruiting class. For those that don't know much about you, your style of play, describe your style of play, how you approach the game of football.
Well, I'm a physical linebacker. I love to hit. I just love attacking the quarterback, too. I love any type of physical contact that I can get, whether you're an old lineman, whether you're a quarterback, running back, receiver, anything. If you come across the middle, I'll hit you. If you try to run, but if you touch the ball, I'm going to hit you. If you try to come block me, I'm going to hit you. It's just my style of play is just physical and be the best that I can be. Never let the man in front of you beat you.
Well, you mentioned Terrence Plummer. Terrence Plummer is a guy that's dear to our hearts down here for sure for the last couple seasons. He's basically run our defense and been kind of the leader and all that stuff. Is that something that you want to be one of these days, the leader on the defense? I believe you're probably going to play outside linebacker, but
probably more middle to start off with, and then he said it depends on certain games. If it's a passing team, he'll put me at will, most likely have me rushing off the edge. Run heavy teams, I'll be in the middle, and a lot of balance. I'll be playing just both of them wherever he can fit me in at, wherever he wants me to play, I'll play. But yes, sir, I really want to be able to be the heart and soul of the defense, and I'm pretty sure I can be that. I know I will be that. It's just, I got to go in there and prove myself when the summer comes around in order to have that starting position as a freshman.
Yeah, one of the things that Terrence always did was that he played on every down, no matter what, with all of his heart, with everything that he had on every single down. Would you say that you do the same thing?
Yes, sir, I do. It doesn't matter how the game's looking, what the weather's like. If I'm hurting or not, I'm just going to keep pushing through because I know I have to fight for the man right next to me, because I know he'll do the same for me, so there's no excuses for me. I have to keep going.
You talked earlier about the recruiting process and the UCF coaches. Talk about the relationship you're developing with UCF head coach George O'Leary.
He's a really great guy, knowing that he's been working in the league. He's worked in different colleges. It was really amazing knowing that I can meet a coach like him and build a relationship with him throughout this whole recruiting process. Got multiple calls from him day in and day out when he could call, and the other time I had to call him, of course. Just a really overall great guy, loves my family. My family loves him. He just treated us, he welcomed us in really easily. It wasn't a hard decision to know that he was going to be my head coach.
Earlier you mentioned academics as being part of the rationale for choosing UCF. What do you plan to major in? Have you made that decision? And talk about the academic excellence that attracted you to UCF.
Yes, I'm supposed to. What I wanted to do is I wanted to major in sport medicine, sports exercise and science, and minor in mass communications. And then after that, because I knew that UCF has a great athletic program down there, just because you're working down in the state of Florida, number one, where the weather is crazy. At any point it can get super hot, but then when it's cold, it can get really cold, really humid and all. And I like being able to work with top athletes, knowing that I have a great opportunity from being down here in UCF, because there's like a whole bunch of other colleges, a lot of pro teams down in the state of Florida, and it's going to be easy for me to be able to find a job down there, because the people that are working with these pro teams have to be the best, best in the nation in order to be working with the best athletes. So being able to have the opportunity to do that would be really great for me.
You played a lot of defensive end, it seemed like, in high school. Is the transition to being a stand-up linebacker, is that going to be difficult for you, or have you played both?
Yes, sir, I played both of them. It wasn't really hard because they made me play defensive end. It was my junior year because we didn't have any more defensive ends that they thought that were ready to play. So they put me down there because I was originally a linebacker freshman and sophomore year, middle linebacker. And then when they put me down there on the end, they had me standing up, rushing off the edge. Sometimes they had me hand down, they had me playing 3-tech. And then when one of our linebackers couldn't play a game, they had me back in middle. So it's not really a hard transition because I know how to play all the positions down there within the front seven. So it shouldn't be that hard. It won't be that hard when I get down there.
All right, if there's one thing that you need to tell Knight Nation, you're talking to them right now, they're listening, what would you tell them about yourself and what you're going to do when you come to UCF?
First off, we're going to win. We're going to win a lot of games down there. We're also going to be the best team in the nation for the next 4 years, conference championships, everything. So just get ready. All
righty, that sounds awesome. We are very excited to have you down. I cannot wait to see you out there playing for the Knights.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate it, and hopefully we will talk to you later on as the summer goes on and into the fall and all that stuff, all right? We will have you back for sure.
No problem, thank you.
So, you know what they say, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. We don't need to know about your fun-filled weekend in the City of Sin, but we hope you'll click the ad on our website. It's right there to the left, the one that screams you have to save up to 50% off your next trip to Vegas. Just click on the ad and we promise never to talk about what happened in Vegas.
Hey, this is Renell Hall, number 6 wide receiver of the University of Central Florida, and you're listening to Knightline Podcast.
All right, thank you, Quintin Hampton and Renell Hall there at the end. On to basketball, I guess, now.
Yeah, the commercial earlier, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, don't talk about it. We shouldn't talk about what happened in Tampa. South Florida goes into the game a 1-point favorite, and they win 74-45. So it's not only that you got beat by 30, but you lose to the Cows by that much. UCF shot 26% from the floor, 2 of 20 from beyond the arc. They fall to 12-17 overall, 5-13 in the AAC. This comes after the previous year, 4-14 in the AAC. So, do the quick math, 9-27 in 2 seasons in AAC play. Last year they were 13-18 overall. Of course, this is before the AAC tournament starts. The Sagarin ratings published in USA Today and other publications, out of 351 college basketball schools ranked, your UCF Knights ranked 247th. When you look at some of the teams, we talked about this a couple times during the season about the strength of schedule. It was one of the questions we got a couple weeks back. On that 282 Florida Atlantic, Remember, that was the game UCF scored 41 points. A loss at Illinois-Chicago, they're 293. They were 7-23 on the season, and one of those 7 wins were over UCF. So you say, well, where did UCF get its 13 wins from? 304 Southeast Louisiana, 330 Bethune-Cookman, 335 Stetson. Jeez. I mean, the numbers don't lie, right?
Yep.
Those are not good numbers.
Well, I guess the positives here are that we can look towards next year. There's still the AAC tournament that, miracles could happen there. But, next year the sanctions are over from the cheating, whatever it was. We'll have a full recruiting class. So hopefully it starts to happen again. We had a column by our friend John on our website, UCFKnightlinePodcast.com. You can read it there. It's called UCF's 7-year plan. And it was an interesting take on the whole deal. So,
yeah, how long until we start to see some results? As Donnie Jones, head coach of UCF basketball, says, no excuses, yet there are all sorts of excuses. When does that run out? Does the seat not start to get hotter? Athletics director Todd Stansbury, in an interview with Shannon Owens-Green, who's coming up here on the Knightline podcast, said, be patient, Knights fans. All I would say is look around the CFE arena. There are fewer and fewer patient Knights fans. And if you read the message board comments, a growing chorus of fans that say the Donnie Jones experiment has run its course.
Well, I think that we can only be patient for another year or so. I
mean, there was a great season in terms of the development and growth of freshman B.J. Taylor, Adonis Enriquez. Good names coming
Brandon
in.
Goodwin
Yeah,
did a good
some
job
growth
this
for
year.
him. You don't lose too many seniors. Casey Wilson and Miles Davis, not a lot of play from him. So you've got most of those players coming back. You've got some new names coming in that are promising. But wouldn't you say that those new guys are going to need some time to develop and gel? So to me, when Donnie was saying at the outset of the season that this was a young team and this is a tougher league, it doesn't sound like we're turning the corner next season. It really seems like it's 2 years away, which was the premise of John's article, that 7 years in. A friend of mine said to me this week, when is it fair to ask Donnie Jones, when are we making an NCAA tournament? And I think what sticks at you, besides a 30-point loss to South Florida, is you get swept by East Carolina, who just entered the league, who we were in Conference USA.
And it's not a basketball school. They're a football school.
And you look at the
as
top
well,
of the standings. Who's at the top of the standings? It's not even the perennial powers, that old Big East. It's not Cincinnati. It's not Temple. Who's battling for the top in the AAC? Tulsa and SMU. Oh, by the way, they were our mates in Conference USA as well. So it's not even we're not competitive with Cincinnati, UConn, the defending champions, Temple. It's that you've fallen behind all of the other programs. You at least hang your hat on and say, well, we're better than South. Oh, well, that's gone too now.
Well, I did make a little prediction earlier in the season that they would do better than last year, and they did. So, did we bet anything on that?
We did not bet on them winning one more game.
Hey,
in
it's
AAC
better than
play.
Last year.
I
just said it would be better than last year.
Slightly better. Right now, going into the AAC tournament, UCF's looking like a 9th seed, so there may be a chance in that first-round game of getting the 6th AAC win.
And it sounds like the teams that they could play in that first round would be either Tulane or East Carolina, and we will find out soon.
You can follow the Knightline podcast on Facebook, Twitter. You Twitter during home basketball games. Call in 407-205-7427, 205-7427. When we spoke with Sentinel beat writer Shannon Owens-Green, she talked about the interaction with fans and how social media has really changed the way you cover a team.
All right, joining us on the phone now is Shannon Owens-Green from the Orlando Sentinel. She is the UCF sports beat writer. Shannon, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
So, Shannon, how long have you been with the Sentinel, number one?
I have been with the Sentinel in September, effective 10 years.
And how long have you been covering UCF athletics?
This was actually my first year doing the UCF beat. So I've been at the paper 10 years, but I haven't actually been the beat reporter for any of the teams. So this was my first year on the beat. So I started kind of part-time on the beat last spring, and then took it on full-time in the fall.
Talk a little bit about that, the difference between the role you had and now covering UCF on an ongoing basis throughout the sports year.
Obviously, as a columnist, you're picking and choosing different topics that you want to talk about, different hot-button topics. And as a beat reporter, it's your job to just build a knowledge base around a specific subject. So one is just more broad and one is more specific.
And what's it like covering UCF, working with the athletes, working with the coaches, and coverage of the program?
It's great. I mean, you get an opportunity to definitely build deeper relationships with people because you see them on a consistent basis. You're covering the same things every day, so you get an opportunity to get a deeper knowledge base on a particular subject. And obviously, you know, there's some interesting personalities over there. George O'Leary, of course, everybody knows him. He's definitely got, you know, a funny personality. Coach Jones, he's great to work with. Really has a lot of knowledge of the game, and you know, I know he takes a lot of heat and fans feel a certain kind of way about him, some fans. But I will say this, when you ask him a question, he really breaks down, you know, the knowledge of basketball, and I think he has a great understanding of the sport. All the other coaches that I've talked to or worked with have been great. The athletes have been great. The senior class that just left for UCF football was a great class, very talkative, very smart, bright kids. So it's been fun.
Yeah, you came in at a good time in the UCF history for sure. You've been covering sports for a long time, so you're obviously a sports fan. What's Shannon Owens-Green like as a sports fan? What's your favorite stuff to watch, favorite things to attend, besides your work?
You know, what's funny is when I started out, basketball was more of my meat potato sport because my brother played professional basketball. So I grew up in gyms watching basketball tournaments. As everybody who knows, who has a sibling that has played AAU ball or any level of high-level sports, as a family, you spend all of your holidays watching them play. So basketball was what I grew up watching, but you know, I went to the University of Texas, and obviously football was a major sport there. When I came to UT, Ricky Williams was just leaving. Actually, I think he had already left. He was just on campus finishing up his degree. There were a lot of big-time athletes over there, and there was just a high level of interest in football. And as I started watching more games and really kind of falling more and more in love with the sport, football became more of the sport that I enjoyed watching.
There's a family member that as well is an icon that you're related to. Tell us about that.
Yeah, my great uncle is Jesse Owens, the track athlete. He was my dad's uncle. I never got an opportunity to meet him because he passed away before I was born. But, you know, growing up, I always knew about it because there were photos around the house. My dad and him were very close. He would spend summers over there. We always heard stories about him, and it was something that we felt very proud of. But at the same time, as a kid, I always felt a little weird about kind of saying it because it was something I was proud of. But at the same time, you know, I didn't really know him. So it was just like I knew him the same way everybody else grew up knowing him, just kind of from afar, you know, with a few little family stories sprinkled in. But I don't have, like, you know, a bunch more insider knowledge about him. You know, definitely it was a great source of pride in our family because he represented his sport well. He stood for integrity in sport, and he left a great legacy.
And you've delved more into his life, though. You've written about him and talked to other people about him?
Yeah, the story that I actually wrote was more so about not so much just him. It was about trying to find our family connection to him. Because like I said, growing up as a kid, I didn't really know him very well. He was actually, his sister was my grandmother. So that's how the, you know, family relationship worked there. And a lot of people on my dad's side of the family died when I was very young. So I just didn't have a lot of family connections. There was a lot of people I didn't know. So there was just kind of like a hole, you know, as far as for me missing on that side. My dad died when I was 14, so I didn't get an opportunity to grow up and get a lot of information from him. And then when he was alive, he had multiple sclerosis. He was sick. So I didn't really get an opportunity to build a deep relationship and talk about all those things. So when I wrote this story, it was really more so my journey trying to find out more information about my family history, not just Jesse Owens, but just my entire family on that side because I didn't know so many of them.
Now, earlier you talked about a deeper dive in covering a beat. Talk a little bit about the change during the time in which you've been in journalism with the social media. You're more active than just writing a column or an article in the newspaper, you've got to be on social media and be active during games. Talk about that part of your job.
Oh, my gosh. Social media has totally changed the way that we do our job. Some for the good and some for the not so good, just to be perfectly honest. Because I do feel like sometimes you have to be wired in 24 hours a day. And, you know, back in the day when we started, yes, you did your job with passion and enthusiasm, but you did have, you know, pockets of time where you disconnected, where you lived your normal life. But now, because of social media and because the appetite for information has increased so much, it's like around the clock. People don't always realize that at some point, you know, we have lives too. So that aspect of it definitely makes it difficult. But as far as tweeting during the games, I enjoy that. When I started at the Sentinel years ago, blogging was still like a very new concept, and I was one of the first people on the staff to live blog during games. Not tweet, but live blog. I would post full-on blogs. So I'd be like at state volleyball tournaments and stuff, and I would post things because what I discovered was obviously everybody wasn't at the tournament. You know, you had some parents that had to work or were out of town and couldn't come. So when I was blogging those things, they were able to follow and track the games and track their loved ones. So that's how I kind of really got into it. And then as the years passed, obviously social media just took off, you know, with Hootsuite and TweetDeck and Vine and everything, Instagram. It's like every year there's something new that's coming out. But the positive aspect of it is it allows fans to have a more intimate look, you know, at the teams they love and the players that they love to follow. So you can now post things on Instagram, take a photo, show people what you're doing during your day so they can get a better view of what you're doing. So I think it does more good than bad, but there are some pitfalls of it, obviously.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is amazing with social media, especially like Twitter, is that things happen so fast, and like news does not have time to wait for the front page of the paper anymore. It is there like instantly, especially on Twitter. Things just go like fire. I mean, it's amazing how fast a story will circulate, you know?
Absolutely. But I think as far as for the Sentinel, I know our policy is that's not the first place we necessarily want to break news until we get everything confirmed. I think the one thing that is a pitfall of social media is it allows people an opportunity to just put anything out there. And sometimes people put things out there that haven't even been vetted. So that's where you have to be careful, you know, as a professional journalist. I mean, obviously fans and people that are just commenting, that's different. But if you work in the media, you definitely have to hold yourself to a higher standard in terms of how you use Twitter and how you use social media. Because when people read things, they expect it to be true. So for me personally, I don't want to put something out there until it's been confirmed by at least 3 people, and I know that it's absolutely true. I don't like to tweet speculation. And sometimes it's hard because you might know certain things or have a little bit of insight, and you can't tweet it or you don't put it out there because you want to make sure that you're being accurate and sound, but other websites and whatnot might put it out there quicker. So then there is the pressure sometimes to, you know, want to pull the trigger earlier. But that's where it goes back to what the ethics and practices are of your news outlet.
You know, it's been my first year working with the basketball and all this stuff as well, and being in those rooms, those media rooms and stuff. And I remember this year, a couple of games back, I tweeted something on Twitter, and everybody in the press room also saw what I tweeted, and everybody looked at me and like, "Where'd you hear that from? Where'd you hear that from?" And I was like, I was kind of petrified, to be honest with you, because I heard it, you know, from this guy that heard it from this guy, and luckily it was confirmed, but it was kind of a weird feeling, and I'd never experienced that, and now I know to, like you said, you know, check your sources and all that stuff. Luckily it worked out for me, but it's something that
I'm glad it worked out for you.
It's something that I'm definitely learning. I'm learning a lot here. We're learning a lot doing this podcast, so.
You mentioned the fans earlier with all of the social media. You know, back in the day, right, somebody would write a letter to the editor to comment on a column or an article. Now they're posting on a message board. How do you deal with the passionate fans that follow UCF and study every word you say and comment on everything you write?
I love it because that's what sports is about. Sports is about passion. So when you understand that, you don't take everything so personal. I have kind of a sarcastic personality, which sometimes doesn't always translate in Twitter very well, which I have to be careful of because I might sometimes be saying something jokingly and then somebody takes me serious. So I have to be careful to remember, okay, something that I might say in person may not translate very well in print. So, just try to play it straight sometimes. But, I love the interaction with fans. I really do because, number one, it's nice to know that they're reading your stuff. And if you're writing things that affect them, that they want to read, that they're interested in, and that you're doing your job, whether they're upset or whether they like it. It's a platform for them to speak. And as, a journalist or anyone who works in the media, most people that I know that work in the media, they do want to engage with their readers. There isn't this distance to where, I write it and you're not allowed to say anything to me. I like to get the feedback. I like to debate as long as it's respectful. Now, obviously, you have some people that get out of line and hit below the belt, or they're being disrespectful and their intent is really just to, be vicious. Nobody likes that, but that doesn't even bother me that much either. It's 10 years. I think I've been called everything under the sun. So at this point, I don't know them, so it doesn't affect me. But like I said, I enjoy it. I enjoy the interaction. I enjoy speaking with fans, and when you live tweet during games, you get a lot of people that are watching the game with you, or maybe they aren't able to watch the game and you're having a conversation. So it's fun. I like it.
So where do you think the UCF program is now? We've just gotten past recruiting. Talk of the schedule has just come out. Where do you see, in particular football? We recognize that football just drives everything, no matter the success of the other programs. Where do you see UCF at this moment in time?
I definitely think they're at a pretty critical time for defining themselves as a program. They won the Fiesta Bowl, then they won the conference championship 2 years in a row. Obviously, the road gets a little bit more intriguing this year because now they have two divisions within the American Athletic Conference, so they'll have a true conference winner this year for the first time. They have to continue to win and build on the momentum. Now, obviously, the challenge for them this year is they had a lot of leadership and veterans on the defensive side of the ball, and that veteran leadership wasn't just the seniors. Even sophomore Jacoby Glenn, he was an awesome athlete, and now he's going to the NFL, and he was a redshirt sophomore. So they had a lot of talent on that side of the ball. The offensive side of the ball was a lot more younger and inexperienced, although they had some talent, especially with the veteran leadership on the receivers. So now they have a challenge this year of putting both of those sides of the ball together and building on the experience for the offense, developing some identity on the defense, and then having the pressure of, you got to continue to win because they're not in a Power 5 conference. And not only are they not in a Power 5 conference, they got a schedule this year that really wasn't advantageous in terms of getting them national exposure. So that means they not only have to win, but they have to win the important games. So there's not going to be a lot of time for those growth spurts this year like there were last year. So there's definitely more pressure on them this year, especially on Justin Holman. He always has, pressure on him being the quarterback and having people constantly question when his job is going to get taken. I definitely think they're at a critical point in the program where they know that they have to win and continue to build momentum.
So UCF coach George O'Leary, rumored every year that this will be his last year, and then, of course, he comes back. But at some point, that has to become a bigger story. How do you go about following those trends and that chatter?
I just continue to do my job. We just continue to ask him, when he plans on retiring. There's really no, trick or secret to it. You just continue to report and do your job. And when he's ready to make that decision and announcement, he will.
And what's your sense of his answers to your questions on that topic?
It varies. It depends on his mood that day. Some days it may sound like he's closer to retiring, and other days it may sound like, he might be here through 2017. I think he's just like any other person who's done a job for a long time that they love. You wrestle with those emotions of, okay, I know it's time to lay it down, but what do I go to? I think that's the biggest question that he has to have answered before he retires. Is not so much of, okay, am I ready to retire, but it's what is the next step for me personally. And then also he wants to lead the program in good standing. You know, he built UCF up into a contender, and he wants to make sure that that momentum is continued.
And for folks that want to follow you on Twitter during games and other social media, how can they follow you?
It's at OS Knights.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, that was Shannon Owens-Green, so that was cool to have her on.
Yeah, and we'll be talking to her and some of the other guests that we've had that cover UCF, either on a regular basis like she does or on a reoccurring basis.
Speaking of, next week we have Cameron Stewart.
That's another good get. It's
Wide
really
receiver.
interesting to hear how the players have, why they chose UCF and how excited they are to be a part of Night Nation.
Absolutely. A little bit of news and notes from the other UCF sports. Some softball notes: trailing 6-5 with 2 outs in the bottom of the 7th inning. Sophomore Brittany Solis hit a 3-run home run to lift number 15 UCF into 8-6 walk-off win over Maryland at the UCF softball complex on Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, the softball Knights have been very dominant, as you mentioned, number 15. They also had senior Mackenzie Audis earning American Athletic Conference Pitcher of the Week accolades, second consecutive week, and maintained UCF's stronghold on this weekly individual honor. Between Audis and junior Shelby Turner, UCF has earned the AAC Pitcher of the Week award each of the first 4 weeks of the season. So we've locked down on that one.
Yeah, UCF softball also led all UCF athletic programs with a 3.5 team grade point average for the fall 2014 semester. So there's some smart girls over there.
That they are. Seniors Kathleen Novak and Farrah Sullivan have been named candidates for the Senior Class Award. These two are one of the top 30 NCAA softball student athletes selected as candidates for the award. So another opportunity for UCF to shine.
Women's hoops closes out the regular season with a loss at East Carolina.
You see a trend there?
Yeah.
Lost to East Carolina.
Yep. The Knights finished 5-13 in conference play and 9-20 overall. A bit of an improvement over the previous season's 3-15 AAC record. The team finished 10-20 overall.
So that's back-to-back tough seasons.
Yeah,
for head coach
and
Troy
not
Williams
much better
Davis.
than men's basketball. So
Very similar, actually, conference
extremely
record.
similar.
But
So-
who has stood out for women's basketball is UCF guard Zakira Lewis, named all-conference second team, ranked as the league's top or second leading scorer all season, lauded for the second year in a row after being chosen as a unanimous selection to the league's all-freshman team in 2014. The Lady Knights also going into AAC tournament play, hoping to bolster their win total a bit.
Yeah, and there's also lots of other sports that are out there. There's tennis for men's and women's. There's women's track. There's rowing for the women. There's lacrosse. There's all kinds of other stuff. So fans, you need to get out there and try to catch one of those little things. They're a little bit more low-key than basketball, baseball, and football, but it's all a good time. Golf as well. I forgot to mention that, men's and women's.
And by and large, UCF's athletic programs have been very strong, contending for AAC conference titles across the board in the sports. And as mentioned with softball, the student athletes, student is the first word,
absolutely.
and they are emphasizing that consistently. UCF ranking very high with the grade point average and the academic achievements. And that's really good for UCF Nation. If you're a UCF alum or a fan of the program, you want to be able to mention that these are athletes that are excelling on the court and in the classroom.
Yeah, so, all right, so everybody just, go to UCFKnightlinePodcast.com, and there's some pictures on there, there's some commentary on there, there's all kinds of stuff there, so we need people to go there and check that out. You can find all of the episodes of UCF Knightline Podcast there.
And keep the comments coming. We follow the comments on the message board at UCFsports.com. We really want to know who you'd like to hear from. We're really working hard to get interviews with athletes across the spectrum, new student athletes coming to UCF, and of course some past favorites. So if you have a guest suggestion, someone you'd like us to talk to, drop that to us, mention it to us.
And at UCFKnightlinePodcast.com, you can find a comments form there, and you can send those to us from there. So I think that's going to do it. This has been episode number 33, and I'm Andrew Phegley.
And I'm Trace Trylko. Go Knights!
Charge on. We'll see you next week.
UCF, charge on to the field. With our spirits, we'll never yield. Black and